And very great to be here. Thank you all for coming over and hanging in with us. Well, Willem already did a great introduction, at least. Well, I believe I'll just stick to that. There's nothing more to add. And before I dive into my presentation, I would like to ask all of you to take out your phones, go to menti.com or scan the QR code. To start off with a few questions, and I'm very happy that the questions kind of are very much in line with the presentations that you all participated in and listened to before the break. And you should be seeing this screen, I think. And I'll just give it a 30 second or 15 seconds. Include your answers. Saying, the future of finance is embedded. I'll give it until we have 50 respondents. We are at 36. So I think we can do 50. Couple more. Okay, 45. We'll do 45. Who's number 45? No one? Okay, I won't. There's 45. So where are we? 4. Most people vote 4, a few are 3s, a few are 5s. No one disagrees, which is good. Future of finance is embedded. Let's move on to the next question. I think this is again in line with some of the pre-discussions we had earlier today. So, embedded finance will reduce banks' role to a back office commodity. Talking about provocative statements. I want to be over 45. There we go. Perfect. Are we going to hit 50 in the next seconds? Lovely. Thank you. So, what do we say? Okay. That feels, and if I hover over a little bit, we should be able to see it. It moves a little bit to an almost even distribution, not fully. People disagree, so there will be a remaining role for banks in the relationship beyond being a back office commodity. So that's interesting. And the final one is an open question, and please put in any of your answers. So for banks, what is needed in order to be successful in embedded finance? Any open responses? I see 28 people, 30 people responding. I just want to reflect a little bit as we go. What I see a lot is on partnerships, which is talking about an ecosystem beyond pure what's happening at the bank. I see trust commitment, management buy-in, commitment from management. So there's a lot of, I always want to combine it with belief, right? We want to kind of believe in it, be committed, embrace it across all levels. There's a few more technical, like seamless and modular integration, the ability to transform your business, distribution, tech investments. What else do we see? Intellect. No clue who that put in that one. All right, but lose more market to fintechs. Okay, that's interesting as well. But I think in general what we see here is there's a need for transformation, and the transformation needs to be, embraced and and carried by the overall organization, right? And that then funnels your investment, that then funnels your decision making, that then funnels your strategy. I hope kind of this set the scene a little bit. So whilst moving back to the presentation, what I want to talk about today briefly with you is actually 3 points. We want to start off quickly with our understanding of embedded finance. I will do that relatively quickly, also not to overlap with previous presentations. Secondly, we will deep dive a little bit in various models, like more conceptual models of collaboration, because embedded finance, by definition, is something that you can never do alone as a bank, or you can never do alone as a fintech. It is fundamentally, or the success of embedded finance is fundamentally connected to how are you structuring and organizing your collaboration with the other parties involved. And then we'll look at a few global examples and extract the learnings from that. Okay, what did they do in order for them to be successful? So starting off with what is embedded finance, very briefly, it mainly originated from the more traditional commerce value chains. People are searching for a product, they are buying something, they might add some additional services, and then you land in your post-purchase situation. And across that, let's say, value chain, that customer journey, retailers already started to add additional services like rewards and loyalty, maybe at the end like some warranty claim services. And now with more from a financial perspective, there's additional services that could be added to that journey in an embedded fashion. And it could be all the way in terms of wallets that also kind of pre-fill a bit of the journey. There's lending, buy now, pay later, and instant payments in the purchase phase, which we already talked about a lot today. But it all the ways goes also in the post-purchase phases. How can you, based on the data that you have and the information that you get, how can you also enhance and enrich the experience for future purchases, and building on what you know in the post-purchase situation. If we then talk embedded finance, and I think also today we, a couple of times we were talking about embedded finance, but then it was also about embedded payments, embedded lending, insurance. Well, actually we see those four kind of evolving as a sub, let's say, or one level deeper of embedded finance. It's all about payments on the one hand, on the second hand it's lending and accounts. Those two are the traditional banking offerings that are now being integrated into embedded financial services. But beyond that, embedded finance is more than just what banks do. It's also about insurance. It's also about wealth and wealth tech. For example, automated savings, automated embedded investments, etc. If you then generally look at what do we expect on the near term, 1/3 across all those domains of all future transactions are expected to be in an embedded, integrated fashion. And as you can see for payments, it's a bit higher, it's a bit further down the curve already, because that was probably one of the first services that was fully started to be offered as an embedded service. And for example, wealth is a little bit behind, but it's also, I don't know, catching up with the overall market trend. So in general, ballpark, 1/3 of all future transactions next 5 years before 2030 will be embedded. So why is that important? And what is kind of the rationale to offer embedded services? Well, when I start here at the right-hand side, usually why it is offered, it's to enhance an existing customer experience. Customers are in a certain customer journey, and in their journey there's various steps, and one of the steps might be the payment or the loan in order to complete your journey, your purchase. And by embedding that step in the core journey, so you do not have to step out to a separate payment gateway or separate environment for a payment service provider to complete your payment, but you include it in the flow, that enhances your experience. And this is a very basic but important flywheel to say, okay, with a better experience, you have a better overall experience and higher engagement of the client in this certain journey and in this product, which leads to increased use, and that in turn also improves your financial product performance. So this is the flywheel, and the enhanced experiences that we see evolve with embedded finance are all, it's easier to buy, it's one-touch value-added service. So in one click, when you buy your Tesla, you just do check the box of, I also want to have the insurance included, instead of going to a separate provider, filling out the forms, etc. So this is why it's important, but then we move to what then happens. And I think I was quite happy with the fact that this was already touched upon earlier today. So currently, traditional model, we have financial services providers, banks, insurance companies. They offer their services, and what you see happen as a risk, at least, is there is a non-bank distribution model in between. And usually those are, let's say, organized around certain key customer journeys. They are organized within certain ecosystems. And those are disintermediating indeed, or taking away this customer relationship. I was very happy to see in your Mentimeter responses that we saw, okay, still we believe there is a remaining role for the bank, but there is a risk to manage and to consider as a bank as a result of this disintermediation. What I also want to highlight here briefly is that embedded finance sometimes is being confused with beyond banking. And I also want to kind of highlight here that we fundamentally believe that there is a difference between what embedded finance is, or embedded banking, versus beyond banking. Because I have had examples where we were discussing with clients, for example, a bank, let's say corporate banking or business banking teams, and then they say, yeah, but we are active with bookkeeping systems. And we also offer bookkeeping functionality to our clients, or and we kind of build a wider suite of solutions for our corporate or SME banking clients. But that is a different trajectory, if you might call it, because what happens there is that as a bank, you are not so much integrating your kind of proposition in the value chain of another provider, or in the customer journey where another non-bank distributor takes a role. You are actually expanding your role in the value chain. As an SME, if I continue on that example, if you're running your business, you buy goods, you sell goods, you have an administration to organize, bookkeeping to do, VAT payments, etc. Currently, in this order to cash or purchase to pay journey, where you are always involved as a bank, you only take this one step of finalizing the payment. What you could consider is expanding that role. Instead of I only process the payment or I do the transaction, I expand my role into I also capture the document, whether it's a purchase invoice or another kind of document. I capture that document, and with the combination of the transaction and the document, I can do a bookkeeping. And when I can do a bookkeeping, I can, on top of that, I can, register my VAT and then automate my VAT payments. Then you are extending and expanding your role in the value chain, which is fundamentally different than embedded finance, where you provide kind of your step to another party in the customer journey. There was a small side step, but I just wanted to make it. Sorry. Second one is on various collaboration models. Because as said, embedded finance is something that you do not do alone. Usually we work a little bit with this framework. 4 quadrants, we always love 4 quadrants, that's why we are consultants. And I think the traditional way of looking at the business is bottom left, you as a bank, single brand, and you have a certain product and you digitize it, and you might even push that to another provider to the market. That's traditional digitally enabled banking. Then on the multi-brand or white label solution, it's you start making it accessible to a wider group, and then you end up in the banking as a service proposition. So you potentially white label your solution, and you make it a bit like in a push mode, available and accessible to others. What we now see evolving with embedded finance is actually the other way around. So where the bottom swim lane, more or less, the bottom two quadrants are more of a bank's push approach, what you see happen now is that there's more like a third-party pool approach happening, where either in the pure play embedded finance, which is like a one-to-one relationship, or an ecosystem platform where it's like a one-to-n or even end-to-end relationship, you see that the customer-centric perspective is being applied first. What do we need in order to enhance this customer journey? How can you from the bank enable my process to be more efficient, to be more customer-centric, to be more effective? So what you see here is that on the bottom swim lane, there's the bank is in control, and usually they own product development capabilities, they influence pricing, they influence branding, but on the top swim lane, there's much more power to the non-bank distributors and the clients. So actually, when we talk about embedded finance, we often look at, well, top left or the full, both of the top quadrants, as let's say collaboration models for embedded finance. And then it's very simple. In essence, there's three key players in embedded finance. There's your distribution partner or your distribution player. Can be anyone, but someone who owns and manages a customer journey. It can be in commerce, like IKEA. It can be or Amazon on e-commerce. It can be Uber. It can be takeaway. Whatever you have as a customer journey as a key platform, non-financial services. That is one of the key players, because that's your distribution channel in embedded finance. Second one, there's a tech provider. So there's an underlying provider that kind of publishes the technology that makes sure that the parties that are involved can connect. And well, I will just quickly first go to the third one. And then there's the FS product provider. I think this is the third bit. Like in embedded finance, you have the party that actually provides the paying solution or the lending product or any of the other embedded financial services. In any way or form, these three parties are always around when offering embedded finance. And then there's the question, or one of the questions to ask yourself as a bank is, what is the role that I want to play? Either I withdraw from the whole embedded finance journey, and I just stay my siloed, separate financial services solution provider, or I move into the platform by offering my products and services and my solutions to be distributed, supported by a tech provider, and then distributed by the third-party players. Or you even take one step further, and that's where you kind of start expanding your role in the value chain by not only offering a product, not only be a risk carrier, or not only be, let's say, an administrative contributor to the embedded finance product, but you actually build the platform. And how that works, we look a little bit here. It's like together with, yeah, I know, it's another 4 quadrants. But we work a lot with Sebastian Kortman. He's a professor here at the Amsterdam Business School, part of the University of Amsterdam. And we like kind of research on how could you successfully launch digital business ecosystems or digital platforms. And one of the kind of concepts that we develop with him is kind of on the 2 axes on the integration versus the market versus ecosystem decision. You can really decide upon, like, traditional business, they play in the bottom half of this graph. It's either, if it's not integrated, you just have your day-to-day trade transaction business. If it's more integrated, it becomes more of a power play. It might even lead to M&A over time. But if it's not a, let's say, a transactional market, but more of an ecosystem, then you end up in the party play versus the team play quadrants. And what does that mean? This means that the various players that contribute, they all bring something new to the mix, and they all have a value to extract from that market that goes beyond the pure transaction. this is let's say, a level where synergies appear. However, to successfully do that, there's a few kind of key requirements. And this means there should be an underlying tech that allows the, let's say, quick onboarding and offboarding of players, because that needs to be a dynamic ecosystem. Secondly, the ecosystem needs to have, let's say, a dynamic distribution model of the value, because all the parties contribute with a certain value to that model, but they also should be able to extract certain value from that model. It's also about, let's say, dynamic governance. Like, how do you manage such an ecosystem properly that everything is in line and everything is kind of managed appropriately across all the parties that are involved. And I think the last one, which is also an important one, is from a cyber perspective. Obviously, this is very important to make sure that it's organized properly and in a tech-savvy manner. So that's on collaboration models. Then moving to the final bit is a few global examples. And I actually want to do this a bit quicker, but because I want to focus on the key takeaways. I want to highlight two examples. One is Ant Group, Alibaba, Alipay, you all know, probably at least by name. And the second one is Ping An, which is also a Chinese player. Alibaba, Alipay, Ant Group, it's pure started, or let's say, it started pure as e-commerce. So how do we facilitate trades, transactions between sellers and buyers, B2C, later also B2B2C and B2B. And actually what they did is they built an interconnected ecosystem where you have retailers, buyers and sellers on a platform, and that is kind of enhanced with a platform of Ant Group, and part of Ant Group, the main brand of Ant Group is Alipay, a second ecosystem of financial services solutions. What is it that they do very well here? What is kind of the key power of this platform? The key power of this platform is that they hijack the golden triangle of all transactions. They know what someone buys, where, when, and what it costs. So you know everything, quote unquote, within that platform of this customer to make them relevant offers, to understand way of life, to do personalized segmentation on a micro personalization level. And the way they did that is by owning the customer journey and owning the payment capabilities within it. And based on that, because that they went down from the customer journey to what is the underlying steps and how can we capture those and how can we pay or take all the way down to the payments. And now they start building up with that data. They can do personalized offers for lending. They can do tailored insurance solutions. And they again start expanding their offering across this value chain. And with this, let's say, e-com driven platform, they have a massive reach. And as you can see here on all the services around, they have now starting to expand in mobility, in healthcare, in municipality services, sports, whatever. You name it, they do it. Then the second example is Ping An. Ping An is a slightly similar story, but there's a few key differences. And I think in Ping An, what they did very well, so they started off as a health insurance company. So Ping An, as how they started, was health insurance. What they started to do was to really add the community concept to healthcare. So what they did is really be a connector party between healthcare providers and people that are in need for healthcare services. They started elderly communities and they started to provide doctor services and connect doctors with patients, etc. And then with their insurance kind of angle to it, they started to kind of bundle those two into one. So there's a one seamless experience of someone that needed healthcare, but it was also paid for and it was also settled with the healthcare providers, etc. And now what they do is they have two solutions. They have an integrated finance platform in Ping An that has 17 entities for all financial products. So payments, lending, insurance, everything. And that is all licensed where it's required by the regulators and the supervisors. And then they have this healthcare community, and they marry those two. And they started recently also to expand beyond healthcare. They have now also an automotive ecosystem where they actually started to do the same thing. Integrate the selling of the cars, the insuring of the cars, maintenance providers, everything is being tailored based on the data that they have as a combination from the car and the payments. So then, very quickly, what do they do well, those parties? And what could we learn from? First is they diversify. All those success stories that we, for example, observe in China, none of them is a pure financial services player anymore. They either expanded from financial services into an adjacent sector or ecosystem, or the other way around. There's no, let's say, real success story in China with an integrated ecosystem that does do pure and alone financial services. Second, it's tech-driven. Everything is tech-driven. It's technology and data that makes these platforms successful. I just referenced to this golden triangle of where, what, and when. Well, that's exactly what they leverage upon. And that's why they differentiate. Third one, it's all customer-centric. Because none of these models was thought of within a banking environment or at a boardroom table. It are all real-life customer journeys that they started to dissect into small pieces and critically think, how can we do that better? So again, I think before the break, we already talked about business problems. It's about solving business problems and customer problems. Fourth one, I was happy, it was in the Menti. What does it need to be successful? Partnerships. So all of those parties, they work with partnerships. Maybe Alipay and Alibaba is a great example here, because I'm not sure if you know this, but in the last 2 or 3 years, their footprint in mainland Europe expanded massively. Also with even some acquisitions in the Dutch payment landscape. Alipay and Alibaba are also expanding their footprint here, just to make sure that they have this global interconnected network of solutions. Even in the Netherlands, you can now pay with your Alipay wallet if you want. And then the last one, compliance by design. And you might not directly think about it, but especially those players in China, what they did is they worked with the regulator, starting from the legal framework, and how can we work from what is possible, from within the boundaries of the framework, to a better solution. And I think that is, well, something we might not disagree with, but also it's often overlooked. Like in many cases, we start thinking about what's possible, start building a solution and then testing it with the regulator. They started with the regulator before starting to develop anything. And that's kind of where I want to leave it for now. And then there's later in the panel, but also happy to take any questions.
Oh, there's a question. Here we go.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was very interesting. My name is Erin Taylor, and I'm from Anthropology. We do research on people's financial behaviour. So, of course, I have a question for you about the customer centricity angle. How do you propose that businesses working in this space go about better understanding the lives of the customers? Because I see you do have that keyword in there. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very good question. Thanks. And I think there's probably two answers to it. So first of all, what you see a lot with these players is that, and especially when these examples that I just mentioned, they're active in China, for example, those societies are already to a very large extent data-driven. So what they really do is on a data-driven way try and understand what happens in society and kind of bring that down to what happens in the lives of certain groups of people and until, let's say, the lowest level, what happens in individuals' lives. So I think that's one. It's understanding based on the data and the patterns that you see. That's one. Second, is, and that's especially also in other markets, in more like emerging markets, there is the same challenge that you want to solve and sort by offering better solutions, but there might not always be the data, or there might not even be the maturity of a financial services network. I think in those markets, there's two comments I want to make. So first is you can learn from other markets. So you can apply best practices across the globe with tailorization and localization, that's one. And second one is what we often see is in markets that are currently emerging or not as mature as some of the more evolved markets, that provides the biggest opportunity to make big steps. So I just spoke to someone here before we started today. I wrapped up a strategy project for a bank in South America, and what we saw with them is they really were able to transfer from, let's say, being a laggard in financial solutions to be a front runner in the region, but maybe even globally, because they had no legacy, they had no, let's say, very big hurdles in their environment. But with the global learnings and with the ability to scale quickly, they were making big impact. Thank you.
Anybody else? A question? No? Then we keep some questions for the panel.
Thank you, Martijn. It was really great. The examples